Hey there! Today we're going to be making this beautiful DIY Annabella style paper rose. And the supplies you're going to need for this are text weight paper. I like to use metallic text weight paper. It's 50-pound paper. You'll need scissors to cut with, or you can use your cutting machine, a glue gun, 18 gauge wire, a wood dowel to roll the petals, distress ink and an ink pad, which is optional, and then the Annabelle style templates that I've designed, which are linked below the video. You can use your cutting machine with the SVG files included, or you can hand cut with scissors and the printable PDF options. If you're using a cutting machine, you can also find the cutting machine measurements that I use written below in the video description as well. So let's get started. So to get started, I'm using this distress ink on my edges of my petals. Now this is completely optional, you don't have to do this. I like to do this because it does add a little bit more of a realistic touch to flowers, and it adds more dimension to the overall look of a flower. So if you would like to do this, then just pick out some sort of ink that complements the color of the paper you have chosen, and then just lightly brush the edges of all the flower tips as you go. And do this with all 8 of your petal cuts. I'm starting with just 2 of the 8 petal layers here to begin the center of my flower. And I'm going to grab my dowel and I'm going to just curl each petal slightly around the dowel just to start giving that paper some shape as we begin to work the center here a little bit. Now you have 5 petal points per petal layer here, and I'm just going to take 2 of them. It really doesn't matter which 2 you choose, and I'm going to wrap them around each other so that they're sort of hugging each other, and I'm going to add little dots of glue on each side so that they stay in place, and this is going to be the innermost part of your rosebud. For the remaining 3 of this petal layer, we're just going to add a little bit of glue on the lower outer edges and fold it up and just kind of give it a pinch until it is dry. And just do that with the 3 remaining petal points for this centerpiece here. Then I'm going to take the centerpiece that I just completed and I'm going to glue it in the middle of that next petal layer. I'm actually now going to, you want to make sure, first what you want to make sure that you hold this till dry. You don't want anything moving around on you, very important. So make sure you hold this until dry so you see that I'm taking my time there. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to take your dowel and roll one side of all these petal points outwards. So one side's curling outwards, the other side's curling slightly more inwards. We're then going to be repeating the same thing by adding a little bit of glue towards the outer base area of each petal point, and then we're going to be pushing it up and slightly pinching it until dry. Give it a little pinch to where you're creating a little bit of space between the first layer of petals that we kind of glued up and this layer. So it's building out slowly, and you want to make sure that you're just leaving just a tiny bit of space when you're pinching that petal up, and make sure you hold it till dry as well. When you're working with metallic paper, especially because of the more shiny surface, if you choose to work with metallic paper like I am, it can sometimes be a little bit more resistant to grabbing at the hot glue. So you have to make sure that you are holding it, because if you don't hold it till dry, then it will likely slide around on you and you won't have a good looking flower. In the end, you'll probably have a center that's kind of a little lopsided or something because the petals might have moved. So just make sure as you're gluing these up, you're pinching them, you're leaving a little bit of space, and you're holding till dry. Grab another petal layer now and your wood dowel, and you're going to want to curl all of these petal points outwards. So just curl them all down around your dowel so that they're all blooming outwards. And now, of course, you will be adding some glue to that center rosebud we've been working on and place it on top in the center of that next petal layer. You can use your dowel here to sort of push it down if you need to make sure it makes good contact, and wait a few seconds until it's dried before moving on. We're going to be doing one more round of what we just did in the last layer, where we're just adding some glue towards the base and the outer edges there, and we're just pushing it up and giving it a slight pinch and working our way around with all 5 of those petal points. So just repeat that one more time, just like we just did in the previous layer. Okay, so for my remaining 5 petals that I have here, I'm going to grab my dowel and I'm just going to start curling them all inwards towards me. So you can kind of vary this, they don't all have to be exact. You can give it a little bit of movement by curling them at slightly different angles, but just get all of these 5 layers and all petal points curled inwards before we move on, and then we're going to start building up the base of this rose. The next step is going to be to take one of your layers and just start tucking all the petals the same direction so they flow the same direction, and then give the bottom a little twist. You should see it kind of naturally twist together as you do that. I'm then punching a little hole at the very bottom of my petal layer. I'm using a quilling tool here, but you can use the tip of your scissors if you don't have this. I just happen to have this on hand and it worked really conveniently, but you can totally use just the tip of your scissors or even a hole punch if you want. But I am just going to do this with the next 4 petals here, and I'm just going to tuck them all the same direction, give it a twist, and then give it that little punch of a hole in the bottom, because that's the hole that we're going to be using to thread it onto our wire stem here in just a moment. Okay, so I am grabbing my 18 gauge wire here, and I'm going to first trim it down to size. Usually you don't need to use the full length that they give you. And the next step is going to be to bend it at a 90-degree angle and then form a little small circle at the very top of your wire. It should look something like this. I'm then going to take this little circle that I just formed, and I'm going to add some glue to the base of the rosebud that we built at the start of this video, and I'm going to be placing my stem right into that blob of glue basically that we just put on the bottom of this rosebud. You're going to want to make sure you hold this until dry or it will tip off because of the long stem being more heavy weighted. So just make sure you hold it till dry, and then try and make sure you're aiming so that the wire that is actually coming out of the flower is in the centermost point, so that when you add your petals, everything is staying nice and symmetrical to the rose center. The next part is going to be to open up one of the petal layers that we had twisted closed, and you're going to want to add some glue to the base and then thread it on. And I'm replenishing my glue gun here real quick. So you're just going to add a little bit of glue around that base of the stem, and then go ahead and thread it through that hole that we created and push it all the way up the wire, and make sure it makes contact with the glue that you placed at the base. And you may want to flip this over and just get a quick look at it and make sure everything is sitting fairly symmetrically with the rosebud that we started with, because if it's not, you want to correct that now before moving forward. And then you're going to repeat the process. So I'm just getting this started here on the tip of my stem, and then I'm going to add glue again to the base, just a little bit around that base there, and then I'm going to push the next petal layer up. Now when you get to this next layer, pay attention that you're placing the petal points are falling in between the last set of petal points. So you see how they're all every other one like that. They're not directly stacked with each other. Make sure you're doing that, because that's what's going to make the rose look full and like it's blooming. So repeat this 2 more times and just thread your petal layers on, add some glue, and push it up and hold it till dry. Now we have one more petal layer to add on, and we're going to do exactly the same thing we did with the other ones. We're going to tuck all of our petals the same direction, and we're going to twist it and go ahead and poke a hole just like we did before. And then go ahead and open it up, and you're going to thread it on the same way, but the difference this time is I want you to do it so that the curl is facing down rather than facing up. And this is going to create kind of a cool effect to the rose, to where it looks like, you know, the base of the flower has bloomed wider than the rest of the flower. So make it so that that last petal layer, those curled petal points are facing down with the curl rather than up with the curl. And I'm just cleaning off some of my glue strings here and just positioning any petals that need a little bit of help. And that's it. My rose is finished. I'm really happy with it. These take a little bit of practice, but they are pretty simple once you get the hang of it. And if you want to add a leaf, you can just add it to the bottom, the base, just add a little glue and glue it to the underside. And then you can find a vase to put these in and fill it up and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Find flower freebies and tutorials on AbbiKirstenCollections.com or shop this template on CatchingColorflies.com.